Hi, have you been named the executor on somebody's will? It's Nancy Beauvair here with Agapian Next Steps, and I wanted to tackle the issue of the role of the executor. It's something that we don't often give a lot of thought to when a loved one asks us if we'll step forward and be named on their will as their executor. But there's actually a lot of responsibility that comes with it, and we don't think about that. We don't really realize until we've already agreed, in many cases, just what is involved. So just to be a little bit prepared, I thought I'd do this little video and just present what is going to be required. The role of the executor and the role of the trustee are different tasks, although in most cases the same person is named as the executor and the trustee. The executor is the person that takes care of things, the initial stages, when your loved one first passes away. The trustee, that's the role that kicks in when it's time to actually distribute assets and manage the financial aspect of things. In other words, once somebody passes away and everything is being settled, all of those assets that are part of the estate are placed essentially in a trust. And the trustee is responsible for managing and distributing those assets. So that's why it's called a trustee. But as I say, most people name the same person to fulfill both roles. So there's a bit of continuity there. The responsibilities of someone who has been named as the executor and trustee on somebody's will are really quite lengthy. There are things like obtaining the original copy of the will. When you go to the courts to apply for grant of probate, they're going to want the original will. So you should make sure that you know how to obtain that if you don't already have the original copy of the will. It's going to be up to you to make sure that you have a list of all of the assets and liabilities of the deceased person. It's going to be up to you to make sure that you know how to contact each of the beneficiaries that are named in the will. It's going to be up to you to notify bankers and insurance brokers and investment planners and employers in some cases. It's going to be up to you as the executor of the will to contact all of those people and advise them of the death of the loved one. Then beyond that, there is making sure that you gather up all of the assets and that you keep them secure until the time comes that you're permitted to distribute those assets. There's, in many cases, if there's real property, there may be ongoing costs until you can sell the property. You're going to have to keep track of all of those expenses going forward. In some cases, the property, if there is real property, will transfer to a surviving spouse or other family member. You'll have to make sure that transition happens, but there probably will still be costs associated, and you're going to have to make sure that those costs are covered in the interim between when the person died and when the assets are distributed. Now, hopefully, there's been some pre-planning, and hopefully there's been an insurance policy either against the mortgage or a separate insurance policy that will help with the financial burden of the surviving family members to get them through that. There's also going to be the filing of tax returns. In most cases, you're going to have 2 tax returns to do. There's going to be the usual annual return, and then there will be a final tax return that will have to be filed after everything is done, after all of the assets are distributed, after all of the policies have been paid out, after all of the investments have paid out. There will be a final tax bill or a final tax return, even if everything has been settled. Now, the nice thing about insurance policies and various other products with some beneficiaries is you can avoid probate on those items. They get outside of probate. So it can make the handling of the estate a little bit less complex. But unless you have a very, very fundamental basic life, in most cases there are going to be some challenges, and there can be some challenges from people outside of the will or people within the will. So as the executor and the trustee, you do have a legal obligation as well and a potential legal liability, which is why it's always a good idea to make sure that you bring a lawyer or a paralegal or somebody into the mix to help you get through this process, just to ensure that you're covered off legally and don't leave yourself open to any challenges. If, for instance, you distributed assets prematurely and then you ended up with a tax bill, you could end up being liable to pay that tax bill because you've distributed the assets and there's nothing left in the estate to pay those outstanding debts. Now there are alternatives. You can, as I say, you can hire a lawyer, you can hire a paralegal, and there's also some online options of different companies, different platforms that can guide you through the process step by step. And in some cases, some of those might be a good thing to take a look at just to help you stay focused and organized. They'll give you the spreadsheets and the blueprints to follow everything that you need to do, all the checklists to make sure that you're not missing something. So they're a good idea to take a look at, even if you are using a paralegal or a lawyer to help keep you organized, because the paralegal and the lawyer are going to do the things that are related with the court, and they're going to make sure that you're following things based on the law, but you still are going to be responsible for all of that paperwork, keeping all those receipts, keeping track of everything. And an estate can take an average of 16 months to settle. So there can be a lot of responsibility, a lot of tracking, a lot of time that goes by that you're going to have to keep meticulous records of everything that's happening. So I hope that that helps explain a little bit. If you go on my website, I've got an article on there as well as a link that you can find out a little bit more. There is another small short video that explains a little bit more about the role of an executor. I hope that helps, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye for now.